Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy Eggman. Today, I'm here with your co-host Moon, and we have a very special guest. You might have heard of him. I know I have. He's a real stand-up guy. Introducing Samo.
Woo! All right. Looks like I'm the guest today. I was not expecting this, but it looks like that's the way it is. No, but no, really. So to any of our fans, our very small following, if you'd like to introduce yourself, bro. That'd be cool. Kind of give the rundown of who you are. How did you emerge on the internet?
For certain. Well, they call me the Eggman, otherwise known as Eggy, otherwise known AKA Egg White, otherwise known as the Pussy Obliterator, otherwise known as Mr. Firehose. You know, that's a few names the girls call me, but it is what it is. So basically, what do I do? Who am I? Well, I'm a man. I like to make videos. And I like to do live streams, and I like to make music, and I found myself in a few sticky situations over the years that have, sort of given me a little bit of a prominence of sorts. But essentially, it all started off because I was a weird-looking guy, and I looked goofy and silly and just weird-looking. And so I posted my face on 4chan a couple of times some years ago. It's been about 5 years now, and people looked at the pictures and they got a good kick out of them, and I just would, I was just hanging around. I would go and hang around in some of these threads, and I wasn't having too much luck romantically, so I thought I could maybe get a little bit of feedback. That was kind of just the general idea of what was going on here. Was like some guys who had social issues or social outcasts or whatever, and they would just post their faces, and it was just a thing that was going on at that time.
Yeah, I remember those days. Go ahead.
But essentially, I think it kind of the first peak, I guess you could say, that it came to was there was a particular selfie that I took where I looked particularly orange and depressed and just extra goofy, I guess, although that was not my intention by any means.
Right.
But that was just so silly that there was actually some people that went and started posting it around as sort of a reaction image, and it was actually pushed by some guys who I had gamed with in a Steam group back, I would say, 2 to 3 years prior to this particular time, because they knew who I was from me having gamed with them. We had long Steam sessions and Ventrilo and TeamSpeak. We'd hang around. I was in college at that time, so nice. That was what I would do. We'd game and hang out. But then, so they kind of pushed this because they're like, oh, it's that guy. We know him and he's posting it. And so they kind of pushed it a little bit, just kind of a joke. And then it kind of ended up catching on because I had sort of this very particular, once I made myself known and kind of had some, put myself out there in an otherwise anonymous culture of the image board culture, then I kind of was just sticking out. But still, at that time, it was still just very limited to a particular amount of people. It kind of stuck that way, and it kind of just was how it was. It was very limited to this particular thing until then in the fall of 2015, which is probably the most notable thing that I've had happen. I had distanced myself from the image board culture. I just, I basically had a little bit of a scuffle of sorts where I wasn't really wanted, and I was like, all right, well, if that's how that is, then whatever. But since I had sort of been this, like I said, like a sore thumb, meme. Yeah, like this meme guy, this sore thumb, whatever. I'd stuck out, and a day came where there was a shooting, and people were looking for a suspect. They were looking for a suspect. Who did it? Who did it? Oh, then someone said, oh, I think it was the guy who posted on 4chan. I think he said he was going to do it. Well, who's some random guy who's not on the best terms with users of the website and has content out there that they could feed to gullible media individuals who were going to run with it. It was just the perfect fit. So they basically just started spamming me on Facebook and Twitter and sending in media dockets with my face and my YouTube and all this different stuff. And they loved it. They ran it on all over the place. They're like, oh yeah, this is definitely the guy. It's absolutely him. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I just happened to notice one day that I basically got, the story about it's out there, but essentially, that's really what just sort of like lit that fuse and that spark. But I didn't really seek to take advantage of that. I thought it was just really just stupid, and I thought it was just a really goofy thing. So I pretty much didn't even talk much about it myself at the time. But I eventually started making YouTube videos again. A few people were still catching on to it, and so then it kind of rolled like that. And then I had that was a troubled period in my, like, really, like 2016 was just not such a good year for me. I had a lot of different issues going on, and essentially, I kind of, the attention that I was having online at that point was basically just my own suffering, like me just kind of like talking about how I was suffering, in YouTube videos or whatever. But then after a particularly bad year in 2016, I sort of tried to turn over a new leaf. Came in 2017 and started hitting these live streams, which I'm still doing to this day. I've gone through like 10 YouTube accounts.
That's a blessing, bro. I'm glad you're still streaming.
I've had a lot of issues and stuff, but essentially, over the last couple of years, I got some interesting times. I was streaming with like Ice Poseidon, Trihex.
Oh yeah, yep.
I got to work with some people like Sam Hyde, whatever. It's just been sort of, I got a couple of
really
roles.
awesome.
So really it just sort of was like this. Yeah, I'm kind of like, I don't really have any reason to have notoriety or notability or anything like that, but I've just kind of been around and it's just kind of happened. So
well, honestly, yeah, I think it's cool because it's really interesting. So, you're talking about 2015 and all that, like putting yourself out there, feeling kind of lonely, and I can't relate to everything that you've gone through. I haven't been like had people say that I like was a suspect in anything crazy like that. But like I think a lot of young dudes know, especially in these times, like what loneliness feels like. I think you're going through things that a lot of people are going through, because I remember being like sitting around. I went through like a really bad kind of breakup with somebody who didn't really care about me and all that. And I think it must have been 2017. I think I'd learned of you through a based shaman video or something like that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and so to me, like I thought that was interesting, because I was like, well, here's a guy who's had some hangups and difficulty like navigating like love life and all that. And I was thinking to myself like, wow, this guy's out here making these videos, trying to do something positive for himself and kind of document what's going on. And I think you've probably encouraged a lot of people, and it's really interesting. And so I'm thinking to myself, man, a lot of young dudes were going through some loneliness, like, around 2015, those times. And I think really what we're seeing is we're seeing shifts in the way that society is, whether it's using dating apps that have algorithms that screw dudes over, or like all types of things. And so, I think you were exploring things that a lot of other dudes were, and it's kind of cool that, things went the way they went, and like you've got sort of a platform to kind of wrestle with what you want to do in the future and all that. And so
personally, I find it like really inspiring that you have a great attitude at this point, because Samo was absolutely right. Like it's what you've experienced is like not uncommon at all in the age range in our generation right now. And the real key is how you respond to it and how you live your life, because you have two choices. I mean, you can live in despair, or you can try to do something with your life and actually put energy behind positivity and actually try to make yourself into a better person. And that distinction makes all the difference, because it ultimately doesn't matter where you are now. It matters about your attitude and your determination to and where you're going to be tomorrow. You know what I mean? It's awesome, man. I appreciate it.
I mean, and you're so right, because, my initial takings of things that kind of, some of my initial philosophical offerings, if you will, were very much like sort of, it basically like it's over, there's no hope. It's all over. It's everything's screwed.
Doomer.
No hope, whatever, all as the black pill. I mean, what is it? It's somewhere between 400,000 to 500,000 views on Twitter. I mean, on YouTube at this point after these years. But, I mean, and I don't disavow by any means anything I said in the past either. But really, it is sort of a thing where once you're aware of your reality, of where you're at, and that you're going to be in a certain position and working within what you have. I feel like there's something I was just saying, but there was a phrase that I've been throwing around that it's escaping me at this particular moment, but it was essentially just sort of making the most of what you have. Like even right now, I really don't have a lot in life. I have some infamy and so on, sorts of things like that. And perhaps that will continue to maybe be beneficial to me in the future for having been where I'm at now. And that's great if it is so. If not, then that's fine too. But it's just being wherever you're at, and I'm not saying that it's good to like be apathetic and just settle for the worst of the worst and whatever you're willing to just, not care about anything, but just kind of look where you're at in life and just try and get the most out of it. Because I mean, where I was at when I was, coming to some type of notoriety back at that point, the reason why I didn't have any qualms or hangups about documenting my own personal feelings or whatever it was at the time and uploading on YouTube is because I was totally socially isolated. I had nobody to talk to. I had nothing. So I wasn't like, I remember after I made the Black Pill video, the job, I was still working my overnight gas station job. And I remember somebody remarking to me that my manager had seen one of my YouTube videos because it was getting passed around or shared around or whatever. And then at that point I was like, oh, this is something different now. But at the time, I had 20 subs on YouTube. I would just upload random videos about how I was feeling, and I didn't think twice about it because I would be working overnight shifts at this gas station. I wasn't, I wouldn't see anybody until the end of my shift, and old people would start coming in for the morning coffee before work or whatever. And but if I went out, I wasn't, I would go out at a bar and stand by myself in the corner for like 2 hours, then just go back to my place. And, I was just kind of existing. I called it at the time. I was like, I feel like I'm in an open air prison. Like I can go around, I can be around. I'm not in prison. I can travel all over the place. I can be all over the place, but I have no connection to anybody. I have no social circle. I have none of this. It's like I'm living in this world completely isolated, completely alone. And it made me feel very, I don't know, it was a very bad feeling to me.
Yeah, I can resonate with that a little bit because I remember there's a point, I think when I was in high school, I didn't have a whole lot going for me. And I just the way I saw it is I'm like an observer. I'm not really a participant. So I would just I always saw myself as an observer. I didn't,
that's such a great point. I
didn't think there was anything there for me. But yeah, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, when you say that, that's a great way to put it because, when I was in high school too, I was also, I didn't have a social circle also. I just never really had one. But so it was kind of a similar situation when I was in high school. It would be one of those things where it was like I didn't consider myself apart. I didn't consider myself involved. So like when you said observe, that's a great way to put it. So it was funny because at the time I'm in high school, whatever. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to play video games and just whatever. I don't care about any of this stuff. I didn't do my work at school. I didn't care at all. I wanted to drop out. I just didn't care at all. And, but I thought to myself at the time, and this is something I've remarked a couple of times over the years. I was like, well, I was in special education. They said, oh, you're a dumb idiot. You're never going to be anything. You're never going to be able to live on your own. You're never going to have a job. They basically said, they said I was just going to be invalid for life. So part of that too. And I was like, all right, well, that's fine with me. Okay, let those guys, all those people over there that I go to school with, they're going to do their thing. I'll be over here. I'm just going to be neat and play video games forever. Whatever. Okay. Right. All right. We each got our own lane. And then now it's funny because then after, a few years out, people that I went to high school with, like they're graduating from their 4-year schools and going to work at McDonald's and in life crushing infinite debt. And like, it's like the whole state of our society is like, it's not really, it's not like those popular kids all of a sudden were like, ba-boom, and this goes for my small town. So that doesn't fit the profile of maybe a major school in a major city, which would maybe be different. They'd have certain nepotistic qualities where they could be assured to find job if they were like in the top upper crust of the class. But it's just like, now like I can go and it's some kind of strange roundabout way. I'm not a successful man, but it's like, I don't have $100,000 in student loan debt. I don't, I don't know. It's weird. I'm not saying my life is great, but I feel like I'm better off at this point now, about 10 years down the line, compared to some of the people that were like shoe-ins to definitely be way more successful back then. So it is sort of a strange thing to where it's kind of come to, and which is why I would say again too, I don't know, my life has been very crazy, but when I talk to guys and they say, if they're in high school now and they feel like it's so locked in and so certain it's going to be this way or that way, I'm like, hey man, you might be totally right. Your life might suck. I can't say for sure one way or the other, but I'll tell you this much. I've been dealt a couple wild cards. And I can tell you, things can change, and things can go left and right. So,
I definitely agree with that. And back to the college thing, I think Sam Hyde was talking about this in the video, actually, where he was talking about, I think he was saying that when he was going to go to college, his dad told him that the most important thing is networking, right? And honestly, I think that's true. I think like networking, having a network, having a group of people where you look out for each other, you give each other like a job or whatever, you kind of do your thing as a group. And I think that whole networking thing, you can just do that on the internet now, just with like Twitter, whatever. And so I think if somebody doesn't want to be a doctor, they don't know what they want to do, I would say don't even waste your time with college. See if there's like something that you can do, some sort of an art form. Could you like start streaming? Just do something entrepreneurial for yourself. And so I think that's really important. I think we're in a time where, as the time being, like we can use technology to do some pretty cool stuff. I know that Jack Dorsey and the Google people and all that are trying to make it pretty difficult, but
well, yeah, and
there's a
not
lot
to
you
mention
can do now. Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that colleges at this point are not only are bachelor's degrees incredibly devaluated, which is causing what you were talking about, Eggy, with like people who spend 4 years in college and then end up in a McDonald's or a Wendy's flipping burgers, because guess what? Nobody gives a fuck about your bachelor or your science. You know what I mean? Nobody gives a fuck that you spent 4 years drinking liquor at a state school because your dad has money or whatever. Nobody cares. Even if you have great grades, you have to have a master's. You have to be, passing the MCATs, passing the bar. You have to be going further into the academic structures to really, really get the the higher echelons of wealth attainment from that. And not only that, that is side by side with the fact that these places have been turned into essentially communist propaganda camps. I mean, they might as well just change the name of like the first 4 years of your college to like I don't know, Mao's fun playtime. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's funny, here's when you say that, to take kind of both of what both of you guys just said, how Sam was saying, instead of going to a college and not knowing what you're going to do, when you could have, an entrepreneurial venture, or I would say also tradesman, a trade, depending on where you're living at, and depending, there's definitely some factors to consider there. But even you can even take like a tradesman and entrepreneurial, and you can put that together. I mean, there's YouTube channels out there. I'm not saying it's going to be the most entertaining, lucrative venture for YouTube, because you're probably not going to get a ton of sustained, continued engagement on that platform or whatever. But you could, let's say, have a website or something where you could, you go and you start learning, you're sort of apprenticing at a trade. You could write an ebook of, simple tips of how to fix your pipes, or simple tips of how you might, go hire some of those CalArts animators and draw your goofy looking little stick man in your little book, putting the wires together. Who knows? There's you could combine those two. But when you were talking about, how the degrees are devaluated and how it's really just a lot of brainwashing going on there, it's kind of interesting because you could also take that premise of being to like some random brainwashed, devalued degree holding student, but also combine it with entrepreneurial thing. And I think this is where you see some of these, like you go on Twitter someday and there's some blue check guy who gets like 100,000 retweets of like saying some really basic, whatever, some like silly stuff. But
diversity is good like that.
You could have you could take one of these guys. Let's say you're Joe Schmo coming out with your degree and you're flipping burgers, and you've learned a lot of certain leftist thinking or whatever, but you got that, but you're still, it reminds me of a manager I used to have when I did a stint in phone repair, and this guy who was like my supervisor. The guy was like 30 years old, and he was like, I don't know, he was like a human version of Reddit, but he was, he would talk about how he was going to like take revolution to the streets and all this different stuff, because he had he had done 4 years doing political sines. And he was like, God. He's like, I'm going to be a journalist one of these days. And, I'm going to really lead the revolution. Now, this was back, this was some years ago when, it was before Donald Trump was president. So he was talking about like, Bernie Sanders. And he was like, well, we're going to bring communism to America. And I want to get it. And I think at the time he was talking about like podcasting. But see, if you take a guy like that, a guy who makes $10 an hour, fixing phone screens at a mall, and is, has a worthless degree that he's been sitting on for years of political sciences, and he, is sitting around, fixing phone screens for old boomers that have 5 vacation homes, and talking about how he's going to like start the revolution. If you took that guy and gave him a little bit of social media savvy, and he could go out there. I mean, look at like the Krasensteins. Obviously, they're banned off Twitter now, but just people. You got people like that that'll go around and that are going on Teespring and putting, Donald Trump with a big pile of poop on his head and selling T-shirts for $50 to
Right.
old wine moms and stuff, or wine aunts or whatever.
Dude, more power to him.
So that's like, so it's kind of the same. It's kind of
Right,
goes all
right,
around.
yeah.
So you could have, it's, they call, I don't know if you could maybe call it like part of the quote unquote gig economy or whatever. But so even that entrepreneurial spirit from all around, or you can be like, this was just in the story the other day where Milo Yiannopoulos, put up the story saying that these guys that had been working for InfoWars or Rebel Media or whatever, like they finessed all these people out like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Did they steal from Tommy Robinson or something like that?
They sold like 20,000 from Tommy Robinson when he was in jail. All
What
this
the
stuff.
fuck?
So that's a
I
lot
didn't
of
even hear about this.
crime is bad. Don't do crime. But still, I'm just saying, obviously there's people, there's people all over the place that they're getting it how they live. They're getting to some money somehow or another, and crime is bad. Don't get it through crime. Don't be like stabbing people in the back. That's really bad. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
I'm just saying, you make a good point about if you're a go-getter, any of us could be a go-getter. That's where I find myself in a tizzy sometimes because, I'm kind of low IQ and I kind of like have trouble staying organized and focused on things. That's my problem. But, some of you guys out there, if you're in a bad circumstance, there might be a way where you can kind of hustle a little bit, make something work. So I don't knock anybody, for where they're at. I try and tell people, keep your head up and keep your eyes open for that opportunity. It could be coming your way.
Honestly, I feel like it's all about finding something that you really want to do and having this mentality where you shouldn't go into anything just like hoping to be like super successful and not have any obstacles hit you.
Yeah.
I think you just need to find something you want to do, try to learn how to do it, and like even if you suck at it, just keep doing it. It's all about the repetition and just sticking to something and the determination. And then
determined.
And like I think you have to have your motivations in a good place where you want to just improve yourself. I mean, we can talk about the thing about, lonely young men going to bodybuilders.com, trying to get all this, info about what do I got to do to get the girl? I'll do anything to get the girl. I'll do this, I'll do that. And it's like the thing that you need to do is just do things for yourself. Don't be trying to improve yourself so you can get the ladies or whatever. Improve yourself so you can be competent and actually enjoy your life, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but
no, big time. That's totally true. And it also kind of hooks in with like because a lot of what we've been talking about is the fact that your outlook on things is incredibly important, and not just your outlook, but your your attitude. It's kind of cheesy, but an attitude of gratitude goes a crazy, crazy long way, and it hooks in with like the law of attraction. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but it's kind of like the placebo effect for the universe.
Okay.
It's like what the placebo effect is. You take a sugar pill, doctor tells you it's medicine, it fixes you. In a very real way, your own mentality has a very big effect on even your physical body. So the same thing kind of happens with the world around us. If we focus on things, and it's not like magic. If I think about it, it comes. It's like if you focus your life on something and spend a lot of time doing certain things, other things come. It sounds vague, but it's applicable to almost everything.
Well, it's like if you've got the right mindset, you're gonna be able to see like opportunities pop up, and you'll be able to pull that trigger when it's time to do what you need to do. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It kind of reminds me of some stuff I've said in when I've talked in the past about, when it comes to like looks maxing and things like that, because I've said, if you do focus on, gym selling or whatever, being in a decent physical condition, working on having a decent living situation, whatever, getting yourself to a certain point, then when that opportunity comes, if you might find that certain particular, it's like I've actually had, there has been points in my life where if I had been in a better position, I've met some decent women, but I wasn't in a position, and obviously I'm kind of an outside case because I have like a lot of, I have a lot of factors to myself and my well-being that I'm a particularly neglectful person when it comes to taking care of myself, probably in certain ways, shapes and forms. But anyway, I've said, if I had been in a certain position at that time, I could have made something work. Possibly. And of course, yes, there's still a lot of other outside environmental factors that could impact the success of a goal or whatever the case might be. But I've told guys that, and the thing is, that's just is what it is. Life is not fair, and you might have everything in order, and that opportunity, you might miss it, and then who knows? Then you got to go on from there. But I do think it is important for a guy to take certain things into consideration, or even aside from all that stuff of, we're all in a certain particular position where there's a lot of guys that are, trying to find that future for themselves through self-improvement and through different education in different fields, different topics that might not be so apparent in our modern day. But I also say at the same time, I was just reading some books the other day about being a tobacco farmer and how to cure tobacco leaves and all these different things. And that sounds crazy, but I've read books on like how to repair this. There's a lot of education that's available to us right now in these uncertain kind of shaky times. And I think that's something too that a guy could, if he's trying to focus and trying to put energy into something that he feels isn't going to give him, it's not giving him enough, return in life, or he's not finding what he's looking for after some very intense, deep, prolonged seeking, and you just get frustrated and you just feel like you don't know what's going on or what the problem is, and it's some frustration going on. I would advocate for anybody to go and read some educational sort of literature about self-sustaining, how to do certain things. I mean, I remember when I first moved out, I had some issues at my apartment, some plumbing issues, and I had a scumlord who wasn't going to help me out the way that I needed to get these repaired. So I was going and I started reading. I basically had certain appliances at my apartment that were unusable for a couple of days, but I went and I did a lot of reading. I found a couple YouTube guides, a couple web page guides, and all these different things, and I was able to repair this obstruction in my apartment. That was like from some kind of, I don't know, there was something actually wrong with the pipes that eventually did get sorted out, but it was just one of those things. And it's you could take that small scale. Right now we're online, you got so much free literature, many free things that you could learn how to do things that could really save your life one day. And we're out here and we're spending time on social media and we're spending time watching, Fortnite on YouTube or whatever. And we have all this time, when we're in these uncertain societal situations that we're finding ourselves. And I would advocate for anybody to take a day and just go read a couple of ebooks or whatever about some various repairing this or that, or how to grow this or that, or how to purify your water in the jungle. I don't know, just stuff like that. Just take some of that in, because you never know when some of that stuff might be really important and it could really help you out in an unusual, dire situation.
It's like the way, way less gay version of clean your room. it's like sure. Don't just clean your room. Fucking learn how to do something useful. Fucking don't just clean and beautify your room. Learn how to build something. Or anything. It doesn't just anything useful that you're interested in.
Don't just pick up your dirty wife beater off the floor. Learn how to repack a spent shell.
Yes.
Learn how to change a car tire in under 10 minutes.
Agreed.
Exactly.
Learn how to go grow a crop of tobacco. Keep the humidity on it through some shirts and some different sun or whatever. Learn how to dry that out when the leaf gets to be the proper coloring, the proper curing, and learn how to use, a couple hand tools to shred the tobacco and roll up some of your own cigarettes. Because if the grid goes down and you know how to make a cigarette, you know how to change a car tire, you know how to
be a wealthy man.
A spent shell a few times, you could learn how to, well, I guess if you're going to repack a spent shell and you're like using it for hunting, it probably wouldn't work out so much, because obviously it would probably.
Right. Yeah.
But still, there's different things out there. Learn how to shoot a bow and arrow. Learn how to climb a tree. You never know what. I'm part Native American, so that's some stuff I got. It's in my blood. It's in my inherent knowledge, and I was born knowing how to do that stuff. But some of it, go educate yourselves.
No, yeah.
I mean, maybe clean your room if you want to, but maybe don't focus on it.
But and imagine, say if you prepare yourself in all those ways and nothing bad happens, at least you know how to do those things. And it's like, I don't know, when you master a new skill, you get that really good dopamine boost, or not dopamine,
good.
Serotonin,
Well, too,
because
and you see it in there was just another there was just an article that came out like a week or so ago, or maybe it might have been older, maybe it was just doing the rounds at this point, but it was like a New York Times article or something, I don't know, but it basically said that today's fathers, like men my age who are fathers, have like less than half of them compared to the boomer generation have certain particular DIY skills. So I mean, even that, I'm gonna keep it real with you. I mean, you probably can't go out on a date with some girl and be like, "Oh, hey, I know how to, do this." But let's say if you're dating a chick and you know how to do all that DIY stuff, listen, I think people might call this goofy or whatever, but like legit, so, like some chick, it's an important.
I've been told by women that it's incredibly attractive when men are competent and know how to do things and know how to fix things.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. I mean, it plays. And this is what's so sinister about the left right now, is specifically their play with trying to destroy gender. It's like their most powerful play to try and destroy humanity, because really, and I mean, it sounds really dramatic, but unfortunately, it's kind of what's happening. Like, it can sound dramatic all you want, but it's true. Like, when you attack the biological basis of how we reproduce, you attack us. There's no difference between those two things. And a part of that is females inherently liking to feel like they are protected and taken care of, because guess what, when they're 9 months pregnant, they better be fucking protected and taken care of, or if that doesn't happen at all for all of humanity, no more humans, just we're gone.
Absolutely. And I've, when it comes to, once again, playing into physical fitness among certain communities of men, sort of trying to employ physical training just like as a measure of an inherent looks, like for IOIs and stuff like that. But really, once again, if you are finding yourself in a relationship, and if you're a guy who has really terrible fitness, and I've been with chicks in the past who like you might be going out with a chick and she might just like shove you just to see, like, are you tough? Are you gonna, like, she's gonna push on you and she's gonna like push herself off of you and fall over backwards, or are you gonna stumble? It's like, it's kind of like a shit test in a way. Just, it's something that women will randomly do. They'll randomly try and test your fitness, or randomly, kind of give you these random like shit tests. And if you're like showing that you're really poorly, you have poor physique, you have poor strength, you're not healthy in that regard, then the woman is going to, be thinking less of you. The same way, if you got to call some other man to do a bunch of stuff for you around the house or whatever, and you're not, the woman is going to mentally, she's going to be thinking less of you. It's going to increase, she's.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be. She doesn't have to be actively thinking about it, because this isn't something that happens on like a conscious level.
Yeah,
it's
like
something that is hormonal. It's emotional. It has way more to do with just the basic fabric of human relationships than I'm gonna be a bitch to this guy. It's literally her trying to suss out the best person to give her a healthy baby and protect it. Absolutely. Like, and you can't get away from that. Like, and you won't ever get away from it, because we're human beings.
Exactly. Yeah. You see all these people that it's funny to watch the double standards in action, where they'll go and they'll speak out this particular diatribe that they feel like they want to put forward or push, and then in their day-to-day lives, it's like totally, for thee, but not for me, essentially.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, it's interesting that you did come on today, because, like, honestly, the day that I asked you to be a guest, Boone and I were talking earlier, and we wanted to talk about the doomer and bloomer kind of a meme. So I was like, I don't know. I felt I was like kind of having a few beers. I was like, I'm just gonna randomly message Eggy and see if he responds, and you did, and it's cool because I think the doomer bloomer thing kind of coincides with what we're talking about today. So Boone, I wanted to kind of like let you take the lead on that, since that was like
Yeah, I
And you
mean,
want to talk
I think
about?
it does really play into, like, at least at the very least, what we're talking about as far as your attitude about things. Because in all reality, the only difference between doomers and bloomers is their attitudes about the world. But I think my point was more of like why they have those attitudes, and I personally think it comes down to like when you peaked, or not maybe peaked, but when you became more successful in your life. If you become successful in your life at age 16, and you're on the varsity team, and all the pussy in the world is at your fingertips, and you're just the coolest guy ever. It's not always fleeting. Some people are able to maintain that their whole lives, but not everybody.
Mhm.
And by the time you're 30, maybe your success has decreased to a point where you're just a normal 30-year-old dude, and
Mhm.
you're not the king of your high school anymore.
Right.
So now you're a doomer. Whereas the guy who was studying in class and got a decent job out of high school and is making money and is like happy with his life at 32 is getting lots of attention from women, because the older you get, from as a man, the more attractive you are to women, of almost all ages. Like it's the what do they call it, the sexual availability curve or whatever is like inverted for men and women, like
Right.
sexual
And it
market
can be
value, that's what it is.
circumstantial as well. If you're a man and you eat double cheeseburgers every day for 20 years or whatever, when you get to, if you're not taking care of yourself properly. But yeah, you can definitely maintain a reasonably, when you're a guy and you have yourself more established in your late 20s, early 30s. I think that's what they say. I think, like really the peak, I believe they say, is like early 30s typically. If you bring all the right kind of factors together to
Yeah.
have, had been in your career for a little bit, got yourself sort of, got yourself on a steady, on steady ground, so to speak, and that you're able to, you still got, some athletic ability. You're still, but like I said, so it does
Yeah.
necessitate kind of having the, a few factors in there as well.
In addition,
But
the market value for men, it does peak early 30s, mid 30s, but it doesn't drop off at that point. It just kind of slowly peters out until you're 60, and it's still not even that much further from the peak. But if you look at it for the women, unfortunately for them, their sexual, and the way that our biology works,
right,
their sexual market value peaks in their early 20s. And then just from 22 or 23 on is just a steep curve. And so there's also this sweet spot where in the early 30s, women are on this 10-year down curve of
mhm,
sexual market value, and men are just hitting their peak. So you get this like weird inversion where when everybody's younger, women have the advantage in the dating pool, but the older you get, that starts to change in big ways, and that kind of hooks in with the doomer bloomer thing too, because the bloomers are people who are really like catching on to this, and the doomers are people who are going with those negative attitudes in their lives, and refusing to see life in a positive light. That you could be in the darkest place in the world, and if you want to have a good attitude about it, you're going to do something for yourself that's absolutely major.
Well said.
yeah, it's to me too, to kind of bring it back to your point you were saying, of a guy who peaked early and then kind of didn't have the same sort of success further on in life and became kind of a doomer. What I think is, I think that, based on my own experiences, 'cause I made a little video I called like making a black pillar, where I sort of turned the camera on and I thought to myself, and I sort of went into this stream of consciousness for like 30 minutes, trying to page through my upbringing, trying to think of why I might have came to where I was at. And I think part of it really is that I just was not exactly. It all kind of came to like an antisocial aspect of things, to where I was always an outsider in these social instances, and I feel like that was kind of like a major thing that brought me to where I had gotten to that particular mindset. But I do think, and I feel like I am more of a well-rounded person perhaps these days, since I've had, been able to quote unquote catch up maybe on some of my social experiences over the last few years that have been kind of the doors have opened to me that weren't there before, through a series of random things that have happened, as I kind of mentioned earlier. But I do think that it's also where you can I think you can be a well-rounded person and still maybe be a bit of a doomer too, because you can, like I've always been about the data, the graphs.
Right, right,
You
right.
see things where
Uh,
you see trends that are worrying, and you might see those heading to a bad place, and so then you could be doomer-esque about those particular things. But I do think that when we're talking about like the full package doomer persona, I think how you reach that is you sort of let these things take over. You really just let yourself be consumed. And I go in and out of it. If people know about me, it's not uncommon for me to be out and pushing and get into things for, a period of a few months. And then I might fall back for a while. Then I might kind of fall back for a while because I'll kind of push forward and I'll see certain things that do concern me. And I try to, it's a mental thing in that regard where I'll let myself get, because the way that I see it is like, if it's not being a pertinent, immediate thing that is affecting my life at that moment,
right.
Then I probably can't afford to sit there and give it a lot of thought and really have it sort of have this consuming effect on my day-to-day life. And I'm not saying that everybody should just, ignore worrying things. I don't think that's the solution either. But for somebody such as myself, who is not in a very particularly stable, cemented position in my own life, and there's certain things that I have more immediate concerns to tend to, I think that I can look and be aware of certain trends and data that should be a concern and probably should be brought to attention for discussion. But at the same time, I should give more credence to my own immediate particular life problems in my day-to-day life that might need some more the more pressing resolution. So and then at the same time too, you could be you could be a bloomer and come out and be, I think you could really go out there and get the best out of your life every single day and really just be facing for the best and brightest possibility. And at the same time, I guess maybe I'm just kind of repeating myself a little bit here, but I think
No, it's true. It's true. But the key there is being able to understand the negativity and look. I mean, if you listen to us, like you realize that there are some pretty deep, awful societal level problems going on right now that's kind of are seated in corruption. They're seated in it's this crazy anti-human wave that's going on right now.
Absolutely.
And you can exist with that and understand that you have to fight against that tooth and nail and not succumb to despair. I mean, and I think that's the key difference. Obviously, that's the key difference between doomers and bloomers. I mean, one has given in to despair. The other chooses every single day to not give in to that despair. And it doesn't mean all the time that the person who's not giving in doesn't understand or is ignoring or is discounting, the things that are going on. It's just a much healthier way to live.
It's true, yeah. And I do wish there's been times, sort of when I came back to, because I took a break from live streaming after I was my initial interrogation by the FBI earlier this year. Kind of gave me some spooks. So then I went and I kind of took some time off for a little while, but then I went and I got a little bit reinvigorated again. And I came back and I said, I want to press and be, just press on a full positivity mode. And I did that very solidly for a good couple of months. And then, I have over the last, I would say probably a month or so, I've faltered on it a little bit. And I try not to. I really do try not to, but it's just, it's also that's once again going back to some of my own particular flaws as a person that I do have had at times a susceptibility to just, like working on something or doing something. And I feel like, it's not going the way that I'd like. And then I might just, it's sort of a, what's the right word? An incremental thing, an incremental sort of like this day I might start off 10 out of 10, going the right kind of way, feeling the right kind of way. And then after a couple of weeks, then I might be at like an 8 out of 10. Then, then it might be a 2 out of 10 bad, 8 out of 10 good. And then, it's like this incremental thing. So I don't know. I think that's just something that I have in my own self personally to work on and deal with. But
nobody's perfect and you're not always going to have a good day, but that's kind of, not necessarily what the attitude thing is about. Because I mean, you have to understand that as people, we are potential incarnate. I mean, every day we wake up, we could be the best person in the world, we could be the worst person in the world. Given
Mhm.
circumstances, the same person born in a different time could be, the ultimate best person and the ultimate worst person. So, I mean, living with that on a day-to-day basis is wearing, but ultimately it's about, are you asking are you looking in yourself and allowing positivity to be there? Because look, you could be a 0 out of 10 and still think, all right, tomorrow could be better. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you could have had great tragedy or whatever going on. You could be at the lowest point in your life. And as long as you're still willing to look and say, okay, tomorrow's going to be better, I'm going to do this, that, and the other, you are on the right path. So it's not necessarily about being happy, happy, joy, joy all the time and ignoring all the bad things in the world. It's about just being realistic and
Yeah, and just like facing the
and
world.
trying
I
to
would
be
say
healthy about
too,
things.
yeah. And I would say too, even if you are speaking from, I'm not trying to gloat myself here by any means, but
No.
you could be at a point where you are like the most miserable and the most like giving up on everything entirely and really just totally giving up on, you feel like you're giving up on life and everything entirely. And from that point, still, do something that has like a global effect. So it's me
Yeah,
being
that's
like
the
in
world
my
we live
black
in
pill
today.
mode, me being in my black pill mode, making a cell phone video in my own car at my lowest point and my most not seeing any hope for any future and everything like that, somehow like I said, ironically parlaying into years of never before seen social contact and shaking hands with a bunch of people that I admired and getting to meet all kinds of great people and getting to do all kinds of incredible, awesome, fun things, stemming from the fact that I was at like my absolute lowest point in life and totally giving up hope and really just ready to lay down and die more or less. So that goes to show you that I think that definitely you could any day, like you said. I mean, really, the way I see it, especially maybe nowadays, because the world we live in is combination of super interconnected and also really crazy. So it's like, I mean, just yesterday or whatever, we saw this man. He runs this Twitter account where he pretends to be God. He was a
Oh, I
he was
saw a little bit of that.
he was a comedy writer for The Daily Show during the Bush years, and he won all these awards. But really, his writing was very lackluster, and it was really easy to win Emmy awards on The Daily Show if you're writing during the Bush years. Anyway, but there was a couple people I followed on Twitter who had like a few hundred followers, and essentially they had they had like seen him tweeting, and they said like, "Oh man, this account's really dumb." And the guy went on a tirade, a tantrum for like, and this guy's millions of followers, all these awards, whatever. You think that this, it's like you see somebody out there who's like, oh, this guy is supposed to be like, all these people think he's so great and so funny and just all whatever. But then he goes and a couple people. The final straw for him was that he was like getting angry at some random account that had 50 followers on Twitter. So he was going around to,
Oh
he was
gosh.
going to like all these people and just he was furious. And when I went to bed and I woke up and he was still doing it. So it was like this guy in his Hollywood Hills mansion or wherever he's at, won all these awards. He's on Broadway, all this stuff like that. And even this guy who's this successful man. So even if you're some random groiper with 10 followers, you could literally throw a man with millions of followers and decades of industry, whatever, and all these awards. You could literally make a man lose his mind just by, so it's like, it's just that type of thing. You never know what could happen any day. Anything could happen really these days. I don't discount anything anymore with what I've been through and with what I see with things like that. I do not discount anything. I think really, even if you want to be somebody who wants to be like pessimistic on a very hyper realistic type of basis, I think that the world we're living in is not hyper realistic anymore. The world we're living in right now, some people would even say could be considered a clown world. Or
I was just about to bring it up. It's like the positive side of the clown world meme, because yeah, you've got people running around chopping their dicks off and calling themselves women, but you've also got like Eggy tripping and falling into into internet fame. So it's like it kind of works both ways.
True. So
Yeah,
true.
and I gotta say, some of the groypers are they're hanging it on Twitter these days, man. They're getting under everybody's skin. I remember when Boone and I first discovered Groyperism, I was like very alarmed at first, but then when I started to like interact with just different people on Twitter, I was like, oh man, these guys are pretty cool. I don't know all
There's
of them,
a lot
but
of Groyper
but
infighting. I know
I do have
it's a
some
strange
friends out there
community.
that are some very nice people. So
It's funny. I still have a video somewhere that I recorded for when I was doing an interview with a guy. This was it was the precursor to I went out last year and I did some filming out in Los Angeles for part of this movie. Which, to be honest, I'm not really sure where that's at right now. I feel like it could be in a sort of a production limbo, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
But the initial thing was it was back in like October of 2017, I think it was, and it was when the very first few Groypers, and I knew the man, the original Groyper. He's still on Twitter, the first one.
Okay.
He's still on the Twitter, but
Yeah.
he it was like the first few started to crop up, and we were like talking about random memes and stuff, and I was like, I'll never forget it because it was like a prophetic statement by myself, and it wasn't even particularly relevant to the conversation I was having with this guy, but I was like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I think the next thing is these Groypers. Like I just saw there was like 10 new Groypers that just
Right.
popped up
Yeah.
today. I feel like people could really continue it, and and here we are today in summer of 2019, and there's more Groypers than ever. So yeah.
Well, yeah, it was one of our former friends that sometimes used to stream with us actually introduced us to like spooky movie night and stuff like that, and so that's kind of when we sort of got immersed in
I
that.
am banned by Spooky, by the way, because of Charlene. I am not allowed in Spooky Movie Night. I have to use VPNs.
Well, what happened is I think Boone was invited to like a cozy stream, and he just thought, oh, we're just gonna have a conversation, we're gonna chat, and I think like Boone wanted to get into some friendly debate, and
I was
it was not a
basically
debate
defending
night.
Trump.
It was a cozy night, but it was interesting. It was an interesting experience, and I I don't like to get into flame wars or anything like that, but it is interesting to see people on social media. The way they settle their differences is very different. Is very different than other people would expect, and like using harsh words and stuff like that on the internet. I mean, it's not really a big deal to me. It's just I'm all for open dialogue. I'll talk to anybody. I'm not going to talk to like some deranged like intersectional feminist or anything like that. But I'll talk to most anyone who can have a civil conversation.
Well, that's the key there, is being able to actually have a civil conversation. I mean, I'll talk to anybody who will actually like listen, and
like not shutting each other down, basically.
Exactly. And I mean, even in that context, I mean, I don't care if you've done that in the past. It's not like, it's just like actively, I'm not going to have a discussion with somebody who is not in the discussion for the same reason I'm in the discussion for. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
And some of the best conversations, some of the most meaningful conversations I've had on political Twitter have been with people on even like what could be considered the far right or whatever. And so, like what a lot of people don't get is, I think for the most part, I'm not going to speak for the right, but I think for the most part, everybody a lot of people on the right, they just want most people to get their shit together, to be, like actually woke on the right things, and to take responsibility for themselves. Sure, you might have some people that they might only associate with a certain type of person, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad person. I mean, a bad thing. We live in a free country, and I think, we should just really get back to liberty. And that's the thing that really kind of confuses me with the left, is I was like, in 2015, 2016, when I saw them, going all crazy, I was like, wait, I thought y'all were like anti-war, and I thought you were for dialoguing and having real conversations. But my gosh, there is so much ideological subversion that has happened on the left.
I remember, I was very anti-war during the Bush years, and I was still in high school when Obama got elected to his first term. But it was funny to me because, I had been surrounded, I was very, very strongly leftist up until I got into college. So like around, I was very anti-bank bailout, anti-war, there's some other stuff in there. But it was funny to me because I had teachers, in my high school who were also, in that same vein of being a very strongly politically left. And it was because like when Obama got elected, it was like this total shift of him getting the Nobel Peace Prize, and I think that might have happened when I was already out of high school. I forget 100% specifically, but there was still some around these people up until really probably his second term. Then that was kind of when I started changing my surroundings in that regard. But like he's bombing Libya and stuff like that, and I'm like, I went to an anti-war protest. And it was like all like old boomer women and stuff there, but it was like less people protesting, and I was like, I couldn't understand why. And they're like, well, I mean, yeah, he did that, but it's Obama though, So I'm like, yeah,
he's got
that doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that I've changed my anti-war stance. Yeah, but I mean, yeah, but it's Obama though.
He's a POC, bro. He can't do wrong. But no. But when Obama did get in at first, I remember thinking, because like I was pretty apathetic to politics, but I was like, back then in my like 18 or 19-year-old mind, I was like, all right, we got a black guy in. We'll see how this goes. I didn't think that anything good was going to come about. And I was like, we'll see what happens. And then I saw him pass the NDAA bill. And then I saw him become, basically drone king overlord, And so I was like, man, I was pretty apathetic. I was like one of those end the Fed type guys. I was stockpiling physical
it's funny
silver.
to me when you say that, because I remember like the Ron Paul and the Fed and the different stuff from back around that time. And I remember I saw some tweets like in the last few months or so where it was some person that was like, man, can you believe like 10 years ago, you were all talking about that and the Fed, like that was not an anti-Semitic attack. And it was like all these like likes and retweets and all this different stuff.
Right,
and like,
right.
I remember y'all was watching those Facebook videos talking about the Rothschild, the Illuminati, like that wasn't anti-Semitic Nazi videos, and all those people are like, oh yes, Queen Slay.
Yeah, right.
Like,
I just want to point out real quick that calling criticizing the Federal Reserve anti-Semitic is literally anti-Semitic.
Yeah,
because you're saying that the Jews control banking, and then you're saying, oh, but you can't, like how fucking stupid do you have to be to say something like that? It's like absolute retardation.
Yeah, the same thing too. I can remember once again, just another. I mean, because I guess I don't see myself as old, but like in the last 10 years, things have really changed. But I remember, being in high school, and when Obama was running for president, there was like people who were just straight up in class to be like, oh, Obama, he's a terrorist Muslim African, and all stuff like that, and just straight up talking like that.
Right.
People might have kind of some of the people would have like given them the stink eye or whatever. Now if we had everything that we have today and somebody was doing that, I mean, the person would be there'd be some tweets of some guy saying like Obama's a terrorist Muslim from Africa. It would have 500,000 retweets. They'd have his name, everything. They would call every college in the country, telling them ban that guy. They would, but at that time, the iPhone was just coming out. There wasn't Twitter. There was no Instagram. There was no, Facebook was in very, very infancy. There was no Snapchat. There was none of that stuff. So back then you'd get a stink eye, and now you'd have some journalist from CNN or something like that would literally be at your house, like, inciting a mob to like burn your house to the ground. So that kind of goes to show just, once the interconnectivity has not been for the best. It's not been for the best, but at the same time, there are good aspects to it, like I mentioned earlier, where you can be the change in certain respects, or you can be on a level playing field versus some of these big attackers, some of these big bullies, some of these big journalist harassers. But at the same time, it's they're what they do is still very damaging, and so
yeah. I mean, there's definitely it's kind of a double-edged sword. The information tech exploding. I mean, we talk about it a lot on this channel. I mean, the positive aspects of it, and the negative aspects. In the sense of media centrality and kind of the old guard as it stands, and the fact that they do still wield a lot of power, but it's kind of like any technology or any tool. It's not inherently anything. It's how you use it. It's how it's applied. You could take a lump of steel, and using smelting, you could make it into a dagger, or you could make it into a whatever the fuck else, a pair of scissors or some shit.
Yeah, and you need to be a little bit smart about social media. I'm just gonna say it. If a big tech company is putting out an app that is completely free, and it's this amazing thing, don't think that they just created that for your good. They didn't just give you some magic just so you can have some free fun. There are, a lot of catches in there just with the way that algorithms are written, and we got all types of different platforms and types of media that are just like messing with our dopamine levels, and people are just so addicted, and they're even losing some prefrontal cortex activity because of all this. And it's like, I think we just need to start having more conversations of obviously the positives of social media, but I'm glad that people are starting to look into these other technical aspects. But we're really gonna have to have a conversation in the future about should companies be messing with our brains in that way, and how is it gonna go on in the future. And I'm a little bit pessimistic. I feel like if these platforms get any more power, it's gonna be no bueno for all of us. And those people that were cheering for more and more censorship, if they get the utopia that they're pushing for, on that very day that it was achieved, they would instantly regret all of their support for these structures.
Yeah. Well, I actually heard something really, really heartening the other day, coming from the left, if you can believe it. I heard that Elizabeth Warren wants to break up big tech companies. And I don't think for a second that she'd do it, because she's a cold fish politician who doesn't actually follow through. The only person in politics that's followed through since Reagan is Donald Trump. But
on like certain things, I know some people would like to see the wall up already. We'd like to see him doing more things. But I will say that Trump has been active. I know it's debatable sort of on the right now, but yeah.
Well, I mean, whatever you want to say about him, he's at least trying. And he's at least visibly trying. I don't think for a second Elizabeth Warren's going to try to do that. But I am heartened to hear somebody on the left say something that I agree with, because I haven't heard that in a long time. I haven't heard anybody on the left say anything that I think, oh, okay, yeah, in a very, very, very long time.
They want to be so, quote, what they would consider to be like counter reactionary. That's like anything that's even slightly hinted as a positive by what they see as their ideological opposition, no matter if it makes any sense or not, they immediately want to take the contrary stance. So I do agree on that. But as you were saying, about the future of this tech and this involvement in this sort of how would I say, sort of just being submerged in this interconnectivity. I have looking at it both ways. I see it as like, if I was somebody who had just sort of given up on any further goals or hopes or dreams in life, that, hey, if Facebook plugs our brains into the gigantic Facebook virtual experience and harvests our brains to sell our dreams as ads or whatever, but we get to be in like some kind of virtual digital you get to like a virtual mansion where hot babes suck your dick every minute for eternity, and it's like plugged into your dick, and it's like it's sort of like this transhuman type thing. You know what? If I was like totally demoralized and had no hopes for any type of future, and I was basically just seeing life and everything as just a total like a very nihilistic whatever, I don't care about anything, just this apathy, then hey, you know what? Cool. All right, let's go. I'll plug myself into the Facebook mansion machine or whatever. Okay. But at the same time, though, looking at it, it is anti-human, as Boone was saying before, and it would be like just further removing us from reality, further removing us from a healthy and happy and normal way of life that we've had evolved to be accustomed to for centuries and millennia. That we wouldn't be, it would definitely be very, very bad. It would definitely be very bad. But at the same time, if you're some average guy who doesn't really know what's going on in the world, and you're kind of like, you're sort of not having a purpose, you're not finding a purpose, you're watching lots of porn all day, and you're smoking weed and watching Rick and Morty cartoons all day or whatever, and then Facebook says, hey, you want some more dopamine? Hey, just all you got to do is just sell us your brain tissue, and hey, you know what, you can do anything you want. I think some person like that, somebody who's, argues about superhero movies at 35 years old and collects Funko Pops or whatever, I feel like probably wouldn't have a particular upfront opposition or resistance to some sort of invasive, anti-human technological push of that variety. So that's my take.
No,
Yeah,
that's a good
it
one.
kind of already exists, right? I mean, like you said about like the porn and video games and the cartoons, like we kind like that like you don't even have to extrapolate to sci-fi to see that we're already living in that world. And if we don't change it, eventually as technology grows, it will become dystopian like that.
But you can still unplug. Like if you unplug and like if you're like one of those guys who's like a younger dude and you were watching a lot of porn and that was your thing. If you like actually get to the point where you sort of unplug and get away from that, I mean everything sort of will start to change in your brain chemistry. It's pretty interesting when you look at that.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not like I'm more of a libertarian. I'm not like really interested in banning pornography or stopping it from being produced, but it you have to have a high enough understanding of your life to know what's toxic and what's not. I mean, it's the same thing as if you could sit down and eat nothing but Reese's candies the rest of your life and you'd probably die in 20 years. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy unhealthy, but does that mean that we should, go grab, Hershey's or whoever runs Reese's and, take them out to the stocks and shoot them? Probably not. We should probably leave it up to the individual to decide whether or not they can kill themselves on Reese's Pieces instead of going straight to authoritarianism. But it does take a certain level of IQ. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to be that high. I mean, as long as you're not like actually mentally deficient to the point where you're like sub 70, you should be able to have the ability to detect in the most basic of terms what is and what isn't good for you. And unfortunately that is very subverted right now by modern culture, the Hollywood,
even
everything.
like the sex positive psychologists, the psychologists in quotations, even they are starting to deny, like they're trying to deny some of the scientific findings that show like what porn does to your brain. So that's the thing that kind of does worry me, is the lefty, sex positive psychologists and all that. The ones that are like saying, oh, that's just a myth. That is such a injustice.
Yeah, it's like a doctor coming out and saying, it's like the Surgeon General coming out and saying that smoking cigarettes is good for you. Like, oh, this is my brand of cigarette. I'm the Surgeon General. Smoke them all day. I mean, that literally happened.
I mean, without a doubt, some of these social scientists, they're trying to re-engineer, basically our biology and all that. That's really what I think is happening. I mean, I remember hearing, Mr. Jones talking about this in 2010, 2011. I thought he was like insane, like the whole InfoWars thing about this. But then when I just saw everything,
Michael Jones for a second.
No, who shall not be named on this platform, Mr. Alex Jones, not Michael Jones. But I really think though, yeah, I think you've got one side where their God is basically science and knowledge, and all we need to do is just tweak an algorithm and apply it to society, and all the world's problems will be fixed. But it's like, no, it's not. So like to me, when I started seeing all this stuff, that's where, I don't try and like, preach to everybody and make them believe like I do. But when I saw all this stuff popping up, I was like, you know what? Maybe I should get back in the old Bible and back into, taking my faith seriously and all that. And it's really interesting. You've got these SJWs that think, oh, we need to eradicate all the evils of the world. We need to construct this dialectic to fix everything. But I'm just kind of like, nah, I'm just gonna go back to God and read the Bible and kind of follow some of the guides in there, because when it comes to like social justice and things like that, a lot of these things kind of get ironed out when you kind of just get right with God and you try to let him show you things and all that. But yeah.
Eggy, are you a Christian?
Well, I am. I've been baptized and confirmed in the church, and I've talked about this a little bit in the past. I don't talk about religion a lot in what I do, because I do have a following of people, some of them who are atheist or pagan and things like that. So it can sometimes cause some argumentative stuff. Like, I put my faith out there and I let it be known that I am Christian, but I just, I don't
There's
I've gotten into it a little bit before, and then it's been an argumentative thing. So I just kind of I do what I do. But anyways, but I do totally agree though, because I mean, even when I was in my late teens, early 20s, and I had been doing work with the church, I've been doing fundraising, and I had worked on mission trips and things around the United States. I'd done some traveling and to work with the church and stuff. But even at that time, the way I saw it was like, I do this and it's a good thing to do, but I was still sort of like somebody who I would still maybe have considered myself to maybe be in ways agnostic in like something of that sort. But the thing is that, as time has gone on, and now, we're in 2019, and people who would be walking around wearing like "I love science" T-shirts are now, sharing and looking favorably upon articles where they say that a male to female transsexual who goes into a boxing match and is 6'6" versus a 5'3" woman and breaks their skull in half with one punch, that there's no difference there, and that testosterone is not real, and all this different stuff. They become science.
Honk, honk.
They're denying, what they claimed to be. And so you see, then it's sort of like this, sort of like the curtain comes back, and it's more of like they weren't about science. They were more about just following. It's like being a follower of a religion, but their religion is sort of just
intersectionality,
this narrative, or whatever this cultural line that has been, or whatever the Overton window is sort of considering to be an acceptable viewpoint, or at this moment, then that's what they're going to believe, and they'll come up with strange justifications, and basically they'll decry anyone who finds their positions to be disagreeable as a heretic. And so it's sort of like things have changed, so that now where I'm at now, I don't feel uncomfortable, as I did maybe 10 years ago, where I was like, well, this is good, but I'm not going to, I don't want to come out. I don't want to be out and out, a full-fledged Christian in front of, because then I know that people are going to think I'm not one of those crazy Bible thumpers for that. It's, you go turn on the Daily Show and you see some obese wheelchair scooter.
Exactly. Right.
She's scooting around with a cross and eating McDonald's cheeseburger. Oh, right. Jesus, I love Jesus. I don't want people to think I'm like that. Now I'm like, okay, now I see you guys, it's sort of like where I'm at now, at the age I'm at now, with educating myself over the years on different topics and things that I have now. I see that these people are really the hysterical, wild, unreasonable individuals, whereas now, me being secure in my faith and knowing what I know, and it feels like, okay, this is, I'm glad that I was raised and baptized and confirmed, and that, and that I had this sort of spiritual connection to the Lord, and to know that He was with me and everything. And so everything, it's like, just trust God really, and things can fall into place. But at the same time, as we know, I'm not going to say that there's not aspects of the church that have been victimized by subversion, that have, that certain words and things have been twisted to try to suit agendas. So I'm totally aware of that. And so I'm not so blind to all of that either, but I know what I know, and I'm secure in my own self and my own faith. And so that's just where I'm at.
Yeah. I'd agree with you.
Awesome,
and
man.
I was going to say real quick. So like when I see the anti-science far left, like, acting the way that they act today, now I'm at a point where I'm like, these are the people that I used to let intimidate me from talking about my faith. I used to listen to those people and let them push me around. And I'm just like, I got to a point where I was like, all right, man, I'm just going to state my views on certain things. I'm not going to get in debates. I'm not going to try and force anybody to see things my way, but I'm definitely not going to keep my voice quiet. You know what I mean? When it comes to expressing my spiritual beliefs. So just the way I see it.
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, you should never let anybody do that. And I was gonna say, Eggy, I'm not a Christian. I'm pretty anti organized religion. I'm a spiritual person, but I have some more Eastern based beliefs, Alan Wattsian sort of energy stuff. But there is a big difference between Christianity and the teachings of Christ and the church. I mean, the church is responsible for a bunch of dumb shit, and is responsible for all of the cheeseburger smashing, retarded Jesus people who do that all day, every day, but don't understand the first thing about Christ or redemption, or they're just I don't know if they're low IQ or if they don't care or if it's just a cultural thing for them, but there are a massive amount of Christians who are just who have absolutely no idea who Christ was or what he was about. And I was raised Christian. I know a lot about the Bible. I came up until I was in high school as a Christian. I was raised by a church family, actually, for most of my high school career. And, anybody who understands the point that Christ was trying to make is not going to act like those people act.
Right.
So there is a big deal, and this, I call them cultural Christians. I just have a big problem with them. It's kind of the same thing that I have a problem with, I have a big problem with Islam, the way that, rigid Islamic structures abuse people. It's kind of the same thing. It's like, unfortunately for Islam, that shit's in their book though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But, yeah, man. So is there anything else you boys want to cover?
Man, I've had a really great time. Time is flying.
It's been pretty good. Yeah, I'm probably gonna get something to eat soon. Go ahead. What were you saying?
I was gonna say, yeah, I agree that I think it's been a good conversation.
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate you coming on here. You ever want to chat, or you ever just want to hang out some night, do a little micro cozy stream, you're always welcome. But yeah, I really appreciate you, man. I'm glad that we got to have this conversation. I'm just glad in general that people there's a percentage of people out there who are starting to just give a shit and actually wanting to just dialogue, and my favorite content creators are people kind of like you that are down to earth. You don't put on airs, you're not trying to be a gatekeeper or anything like that. And yeah, man, I just value dialogue. So yeah,
it's the return of authentic media, and we need it desperately.
Yeah, as long as we can still do it.
True. Well, hey, man, it's really great to meet you. It's been a pleasure having you on. Like Samo said, anytime, you're welcome back. I'll definitely be listening to you on Venti's stream soon.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Thank you.
All right,
luck, man.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you guys next week.
She left me for another man. All I saw was the palm of her hand as she flew out to Japan. I can quite understand. She left me for another man. Killed all my best made plans. I gave her diamond rings, expensive further than everything.
I can't quite understand. I can't quite understand. I can't quite understand. I can't quite understand. Honey, I can't quite understand. I can't quite understand.